Okay. Testing. Good. Alright. Deck here in the right place. Tonight. Tonight. Tonight, Baby Yoda says buckle up. Picard's got more adventures coming, and we say goodbye to three of the greats on this edition of Multiverse Tonight. Comic books, sci-fi, fantasy, and more. If you're looking for a roundup of geeky news, you're in the right place. This is Multiverse Tonight. And here's your host, Thomas Townley. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the sci-fi edition of Multiverse Tonight, episode 54. So, we're halfway through December. Are you ready to finish this year out? You know, I think we're all ready to get done with this year and get into 2020. You know, this is the time of the year that things just slow down. I'm always amazed that I have enough news to report on, but a few things always come up. So before we get in the show, can you do something for me? Share the show with others. If you really like the show, you know, throw me a bone and donate. Let's get on with the news. So we start off Star Wars news today with Baby Yoda. Seems to be everywhere right now, doesn't he? Baby Yoda wants you to know he still needs a car seat in the state of Mississippi. Or at least a Star Wars Mandalorian fan there does. The official Twitter account for the Mississippi Department of Transportation posted a photoshopped highway sign that read, quote, Baby Yoda uses the Force, but still needs a car seat, unquote. They also captioned it with, quote, buckle up. This is the way. Hashtag Baby Yoda, unquote. You know, Baby Yoda, Porgs, Ewoks, all cute. All more popular than almost anything else in the Star Wars universe. No, maybe they should make a show starring Baby Yoda playing with Porgs and Ewoks. Just put that on a loop for about an hour. Speaking of the small green Muppet, Mandalorian director Bryce Dallas Howard has broken her silence on how it was to keep the character a secret, telling the Hollywood Reporter, quote, agonizing. I've been walking around for the last year with a face like the cat that ate the canary. I'm so excited to be a part of this and the phenomenon that baby has become. The thing I was most nervous about was that my kids had been on set quite a bit, so they had seen Baby and interacted with Baby. When we were filming, my kids were 6 and 11. They're now 7 and 12. When the kids went back to school, every single day I would say, so, what are you not going to talk about today? And they would say, Baby, and laugh. I'd be like, that's right. I would just constantly remind them that there's no circumstance that could ever arise when they're allowed to talk about Baby. Now for them, it's very confusing because I'm like, oh, now you can talk about Baby, and they're like, oh, okay. We've been having this routine for about a year now, and it's fun. It's really, really fun. Everyone is super beep, and there's no merch. Everyone is like, I want a Baby Yoda stuffed toy. But I think they made a good choice in not focusing there and just focusing on the storytelling, unquote. And I'm still so behind in watching it. I've only watched the first episode so far. There's just too much to watch in so little time. The press tour for the final Skywalker movie is in full swing. And J.J. Abrams, in an interview with Cinema Blend, talked about Carrie Fisher's role in the movie despite her passing nearly 3 years ago. This involved using unused footage from The Force Awakens. JJ told them, quote, clearly, we would have done other things had Carrie been around, but I will say despite her not being with us anymore, her presence in the movie is not inconsequential. She's not being added in so that she's in the movie, and I would say that her story, her role, the importance of Leia, I would argue is as profound as what you're saying, even though she wasn't there. There's no way, as I've said before, to tell the story without Leia. She's too important. It's Skywalker's saga. She's the living Skywalker in our story. You don't want to start the story and say something happened to her in between movies. It just didn't feel right. We'd never recast her. A digital Leia wouldn't work. There was no way to do it. When we looked at the footage from Star Wars The Force Awakens, which I was obviously very familiar with, and realized we had a number of scenes we could use and write scenes around, it was suddenly like, oh my god, we could tell the story with Leia in the film, unquote. The Rise of Skywalker comes out just a few days from now. Disney is warning fans that the new Star Wars movie could trigger seizures with those people with epilepsy. Disney issued a statement with the Epilepsy Foundation that the film contains, quote, several sequences with imagery and sustained flashing lights, unquote, that could affect those with photosensitive epilepsy. My guess would be flashes from lightsabers hitting together. Disney suggests that theaters post notices to warn of the risk. Flashing lights can trigger seizures in about 3% of individuals who have epilepsy. This isn't the first time Disney has given this notice. They also did it for The Incredibles 2. Now, let's check in with Star Trek for some Star Trek news. The merger of Viacom and CBS is now official. It's now CBS Viacom. And the newly reunited company is busy merging, selling, the unneeded headquarters and eliminating duplicate positions and so forth. This also means that the Star Trek movie and TV rights are now back under one roof. So what will this mean for the franchise? Will this mean new movies featuring the TV characters from the new shows? Maybe the next few stories will tell us what we need to know. So, With that behind us, let's first check in with the Section 31 show. The new show is set to start filming once Discovery's Season 3 is done. CBS All Access Executive Vice President Julie McNamara, talking to Vanity Fair, said that the writer's room under Alex Kurtzman has been assembled. Quote, "We are very excited about the Section 31 show, and Michelle Yeoh is excited to do it. She is in the current season of Discovery, so she's working on that right now. But we have scripts getting written, and Alex has a writer's room. We love what we've heard so far. It's yet another tonality of Trek. As Alex has mapped it all out, each show has its own unique sort of voice and vision." Unquote. Now, Mr. Kurtzman has dropped some hints of the tone of the show, comparing it to a Clint Eastwood-style Western. Kind of sounds like The Mandalorian. Saying, quote, "It occupies an area of the Trek universe that's never really been explored geographically. It has a new mythology to it, which is very interesting. It puts Michelle's character to the test in a lot of ways that Discovery can't. In some ways, it will be her Unforgiven," he said. And yesterday, we also got the news that Star Trek Picard will not be just a one-shot series. The show has been renewed for a second season. However, Michael Chabon, the showrunner, will not be back as part of Season 2, as he's been named showrunner for the adaptation of the Cavalier and Clay novels over at Showtime. No word on when the second season will be, but my guess would be probably late 2020 or sometime in 2021. William Shatner is going someplace he knows very well, divorce court. The soon-to-be four-time divorcee has filed for divorce from his wife, Elizabeth, his wife of the past 18 years. This will be a smooth divorce, as Mr. Shatner is a big fan of prenuptial agreements. Bill first got married back in 1956. That one lasted to 1969. His second marriage went from 1973 to 1994, and the next marriage after that was in 1997, which didn't last very long, ending with the death of his wife, Noreen Kidd, in 1999. Now, odds are that this is probably his last marriage. William Shatner is 88 years old, so you can guess. Anyway, we have some good news or bad news, depending on what side of the coin you're on. Quentin Tarantino, speaking with the conscienceofsound.net, was asked if Star Trek was going to be part of his planned 10 films. Remember, he always planned to do 10 films and then stop. So he'd have this 10 film arc of work. He replied, quote, "I think I'm steering away from Star Trek, but I haven't had an official conversation with those guys yet. In a strange way, it seems like this movie, Hollywood, would be my last. So it's kind of taken the pressure off myself to make that last big voila kind of statement. I mean, to such a degree, there was a moment when I was writing and went, should I do this now? Should I do something else? Is this the 10th one? No, don't stop the planets from aligning. What are you, Galactus? If the Earth is saying do it, do it. Not that it was an argument, but a little thought like, well, if I'm going to go out like Max Ulflus style, Lala Montez, that this is it. And if it's not good, then all my other work is trash, all right? This would have been the one. But in a weird way, it actually kind of freed me up. I mean, I have no idea what the story of the next one's going to be. I don't even have a clue." Unquote. So there you have it, folks. You know, whether it's coming, whether it's not coming, is completely up to that man. And now for some sad news. Michael Lamper, husband of Next Generation actress Marina Sirtis, has passed away. Marina broke the news on Twitter, saying, quote, "I'm going to be gone for a little while. My beloved husband passed away peacefully in his sleep last night. For those of you waiting for a shout-out on Cameo, please forgive me. I don't feel up to it. I'll let you know when the service is back on." Unquote. Michael was a rock guitarist and musician who once portrayed an Akamarian gatherer in the TNG third season episode, The Vengeance Factor. He and Marina married on June 21st, 1992, with Brent Spiner and Michael Dorn acting as groomsmen in a traditional Greek ceremony. His rock career saw him play with such musicians as Tommy Shaw from Styx, the Allman Brothers, Quiet Riot, and Los Lobos. He was 61 years old. My heart goes out to Marina, and hope uh, I hope the best for her. Let's get on with some geek news. The Matrix 4 has cast Jonathan Groff in an unknown role. Groff is most recently known for his role voicing Kristoff in Frozen 2. Jonathan joins returning cast members Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Jada Pinkett Smith, as well as newcomers Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Neil Patrick Harris, and Jessica Henwick. Variety has learned that Will Poulter will not be in the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon. Variety has learned from their sources that scheduling conflicts will prevent him from being a part of it. As to what role he would have played, that's still unknown. In fact, everything about the Lord of the Rings series is an unknown. Paramount Pictures has announced that the Power Rangers will be getting another big screen reboot, and this time it'll take the show back to the 90s. The Hollywood Reporter reports that Paramount is currently in early negotiations with Jonathan Entwistle and would involve, quote, a time travel element that brings the kids to the 90s. In the Back to the Future fashion, they have to find a way to get back to their present, unquote. Power Rangers has never been my thing, but you should go over to Netflix and watch the Toys That Made Us episode of Power Rangers. Very informative. Now, to say that Disney has had a good year at the box office would be a gross understatement. The House of Mouse broke their own box office record of $7.6 billion set back in 2016, crossing the $10 billion ceiling. It should be noted that this doesn't include its newly acquired Fox films. If those are factored in, the number would be nearly $12 billion. Disney currently also holds 6 of the 10 biggest movies of 2019. Yeah, I know. I forget what year it is. The Golden Globe nominations are out. Netflix walked away with 34 nominations, 17 for motion pictures and 17 for television. HBO came in second with 15. The movie Marriage Story had the most for a film, while Chernobyl, The Crown, and Unbelievable had the most for television. Now, geeky films getting nominations include Joker, with 4, including Best Motion Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Joaquin Phoenix, and Best Score. Also getting nominations were Frozen 2, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, and Toy Story 4. Only one geeky TV nomination, Game of Thrones, came away with 1 Best Actor nomination for Kit Harington. Now, death seems to be rather busy lately. A few minutes ago, I talked about the death of Deanna Sirtis' husband. Well, there are 3 more I must report on. First off, we say goodbye to actor Robert Walker Jr. The actor passed away in Malibu on December 6th. He will be best known to people as Charlie Evans, the boy raised by the Thasians who gave him omnipotent power in the episode Charlie X. He also appeared in episodes of The Time Tunnel, Bonanza, The $6 Million Man, and Chips. He also had a role in the movie Easy Rider. In a statement, his wife said about Robert, quote, Bob always beat to his own drum and stayed true to himself in all of his endeavors. Although an accomplished actor, his true art was living fully. He was a photographer, drummer, raconteur, and gallery owner. His love of the ocean kept him in Malibu, and he had great tales of his adventures paddling to Catalina from there. Bob also had a consistent interest in developing his internal martial arts practice. Unquote. He is survived by his wife, 7 children, and 5 grandchildren. He was 79. Next is Star Trek writer Dorothy Catherine Fontana, better known as D.C. Fontana. D.C. began as a secretary for TV writer Samuel A. Peoples, and while working for him, she became a professional writer writing stories for The Tall Man and Frontier Circus. Later, she began working for Gene Roddenberry's series The Lieutenant as a secretary for producer Del Reisman. Eventually, she wanted to work for Gene directly, and after finding out that, she wanted to become a writer, Roddenberry encouraged her. In 1964, she would publish her first novel, a western called Brazos River, co-written with Harry Sanford. When Roddenberry began working on Star Trek, and with the encouragement of associate producer Robert Justman, she began working on the show, where she wrote the teleplay for Charlie X, and worked on 10 episodes overall, including Tomorrow's Yesterday, This Side of Paradise, which got her a promotion to story editor, Journey to Babel, Friday's Child, The Ultimate Computer, The City on the Edge of Forever, The Enterprise Incident, That Which Survives, and The Way to Eden. After Star Trek, she worked with Gene again on the Quester tapes, Genesis 2, and Star Trek, the animated series. After that, she also worked on scripts for other shows, including The $6 Million Man, Logan's Run, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, and The Waltons. When the Star Trek The Next Generation series began, she went to Gene immediately, where she pitched an idea that became the pilot episode Encounter at Farpoint. She would become an associate producer on the series, but left during the first season due to reported difficulties with writer Robert Lewin, causing a bit of falling out between her and Gene Roddenberry, and so she left. She would later return to Star Trek, writing the Deep Space Nine episode Dax. She also wrote the Star Trek books Vulcan's Glory and an episode of the fan-made series Star Trek New Voyages. D.C. Fontana is survived by her husband, Dennis Skotak, who told the New York Times that her cause of death was cancer. She was 80 years old. And finally, we say farewell to Rene Auberjonois, the actor known to Star Trek fans for his portrayal of Constable Odo on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, as well as directing 8 episodes of the show. Rene was born in New York in 1940. After college, he began his acting career in earnest, working with theater companies in Washington, D.C., San Francisco, L.A., and New York. In 1968, he landed a role on Broadway, appearing in 3 films simultaneously. A year later, he would win a Tony Award for his role opposite Katharine Hepburn in Coco. He directed and acted in lots of productions over the years and was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame in 2018. His film work is vast as well. He played Father McCahey in the film version of MASH, played a gangster in Police Academy 5, Dr. Burton in Batman Forever, and appeared as Colonel West in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. His final film role in a movie called Cortex has yet to be released. But, of course, his best-known work was in television. He worked at that medium since 1966, appearing in episodes of The Mod Squad, Night Gallery, The Jeffersons, Wonder Woman, L.A. Law, The Outer Limits, Chicago Hope, Stargate SG-1, Frasier, Nash Bridges, Warehouse 13, The Good Wife, and many, many more. But he is best known not only for his role as Odo, but the role of Clayton Endicott III on the sitcom Benson, as well as the role of Paul Lewiston on Boston Legal. His last role in 2016 was in 4 episodes of Madam Secretary. He also did lots of voiceover work, appearing in Disney's The Little Mermaid, Family Guy, The Smurfs, Snorks, DuckTales, Batman the Animated Series, The Pirates of Darkwater, The Savage Dragon, Justice League, and more, as well as video games like Star Trek Deep Space Nine Harbinger, Uncharted 2 and 3, Fallout New Vegas, God of War, and Star Trek Online. He died on December 8th from lung cancer that had metastasized. He is survived by his son Remy and daughter Tessa and his wife Judith. In a statement to the press, his son Remy said that his father was a proud, progressive, and consummate professional and craftsman, and praised his father's work with Doctors Without Borders. He also said that he was a dedicated father and had a fantastic sense of humor. Rene Aubergenois was 79 years old. And that will bring us to the end of another sci-fi edition of Multiverse Tonight. Now, be sure to check us out on social media. We're at Twitter at MultiverseTom. We're also on Facebook and Instagram as well at Multiverse Tonight. And if you'd like to contribute some money, please visit mtpodcast.com to go to our Ko-fi or Patreon links as well. And be sure to visit multiversetonight.com and check out our affiliate marketplace links, the link to our TeePublic store, the show notes, and so much more. And if you're a subscriber, please be sure to share us with your friends. And if you're brand new to the show, please be sure to subscribe and leave us with some feedback and let us know how I'm doing. Now, special thanks to Shane Ivers for our intro music and Lobo Loco for our outro music. Now, thank you very much for watching the Sci-Fi edition of Multiverse Tonight. We'll be back in just 2 days with the comic book edition. Now, please exit the universe in an orderly fashion. Good night. Multiverse Tonight is a production of Half-Baked Genre Productions. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved. Alright, pausing recording. Check. People passed away. It's kind of depressing. Those people passed away. It's kind of depressing. Depressing. They will go at the end of the year. Okay, let's get to the next one. Do 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 do. Alright. And tonight, Snyder Cut, Subway sandwiches, Birds of Prey is not a sequel, and we say farewell to the Man in the Big Bird on this comic edition of Multiverse Tonight. Comic books, sci-fi, fantasy, and more. If you're looking for a roundup of geeky news, you're in the right place. This is Multiverse Tonight. And here's your host, Thomas Townley. Hello, everyone, and greetings. Welcome to the comics edition of Multiverse Tonight, episode 55. Well, here we are, just a week away from Christmas, a little over a week from the end of the year, and I gotta ask, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want from next year? I have no idea. And if here's what I do want, though, I want to do a good job for you with this podcast. All I ask of you would be to share the show with your friends. Maybe throw in a buck or two from time to time if you feel generous. Just go to our website and talk to us there. Check out our links to other sites. Check out the show notes. That's all I've ever wanted. But all I ever want right now is to bring you some comic book news. So let's get on with it with some DC news. Are you starting to get tired of all the calls to release the Snyder Cut of Justice League? It's just kind of been one of those things that just won't die until it actually happens. Well, Subway Restaurants has put their 2 cents in via Twitter. Snyder fans started it by asking the company how many retweets it would take to get a donation of 10,000 sandwiches by Subway. Subway responded by saying that 5,000 retweets in 5 hours would get it done. The fans came through. Subway soon tweeted, quote, "So you're fast. And since you did it in under 214 minutes, we're going to up the donation of 15,000 sandwiches. Oh yeah, hashtag release the Snyder Cut," unquote. Now that's good on them, giving those sandwiches to charity, and very good on the fans. My guess is that this cut will eventually see the light of day. Maybe if they all pledge to make some movie of Warner Brothers a success that normally wouldn't be very successful, that might get the studio's attention, or filling up the office with ping pong balls. I don't know. I think eventually the Snyder Cut will be released because, well, it just doesn't seem like one of those things they're going to sit on forever. The cinematographer for Black Adam, Lawrence Sher, is making some high claims for what the movie will be, telling Collider during a Q&A for Joker, quote, "One of my interest is the cinematographer for Black Adam, Lawrence Sher, is making some high claims for what the movie will be, telling Collider during a Q&A for Joker, quote, "One of my interests about it is to continue to sort of, and we've talked about it with Dwayne and obviously with John and DC, and we continue to sort of reshape what a comic movie is. Like, yes, of course you want it to be entertaining, and it has to make a decent amount of money, so it can't live in such a fringe place that doesn't bring people in. But can we do something inventive? So that's the goal. Is to continue to try to do something a bit inventive with it. That's a big, bold claim for a movie that we haven't. People, I don't know who this Lawrence Sher is, but he sure can't talk. So let's try this one more time. The cinematographer for Black Adam, Lawrence Sher, is making some high claims for what the movie will be, telling Collider during a Q&A for Joker, quote, "One of my interests about it is to continue to sort of, and we've talked about it with Dwayne and obviously with John and DC, can we continue to sort of reshape what a book movie is? Like, yes, of course you want it to be entertaining, but it has to make a decent amount of money, so it can't live in such a fringe place that doesn't bring people in. But can we do something inventive? So that's the goal, is to continue to try to do something a bit inventive with it," unquote. That's kind of a big, bold claim for a movie that we haven't seen anything from yet. Hopefully he won't end up eating those words, as I've had a hard time trying to say them. Anyway, let's get on, and here's a question. What do you think of Joker's potential for an Oscar nomination? Well, if the Critics' Choice Award nominations are any indication, there's a good chance. Joker has received 7 nominations, including Best Picture, Best Actor for Joaquin Phoenix, Best Adapted Screenplay for Todd Phillips and Scott Silver, Best Cinematography for Lawrence Sher, Best Production Design for Mark Friedberg and Chris Moran, Best Hair and Makeup, and Best Score for Hildur Guðnadóttir. That they weren't the only comics property to get some nominations. Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home got nominations for Best Action Movie. Avengers Endgame also got a nod for Best Sci-Fi or Horror Movie, as well as Best Visual Effects. HBO's Watchmen got a nomination for Best Drama, and it faces off against Game of Thrones in that category, but I think Watchmen's got this. Watchmen's Regina King got a nomination for Best Actress in the Drama. Tim Blake Nelson is up for Best Supporting Actor. Jean Smart and Gwendolyn Christie are also up for Best Supporting Actress. And that brings us to the date when this will come out. The 25th Critics' Choice Awards will be handed out on Sunday, January 12th. So, here's something to make you go, huh? The upcoming Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn will have no ties to Suicide Squad, according to BOP director Sue Kroll during a set visit by Screen Rant. She told them, quote, "You'll see it in the movie. It's a standalone movie. It's not connected to Suicide Squad. It's not a sequel. It's not a continuation of that story, so it has nothing to do with her breakout of prison. But you're right. And we've been very upfront that this is about her emancipation. She and the Joker have broken up. This is her personal journey of discovery with these women, so it's not related at all. So don't try to apply linear logic to how the two go because they don't." Unquote. She also told them that it has no similarities to Suicide Squad and that it was an opportunity to celebrate the amazing character. Okay, so let's take a step back and unwind what this movie is. Now, I'm assuming it's in the same universe as Suicide Squad, but it's no way connected to Suicide Squad, not even a mention. They do realize that having Harley Quinn, the same character, played by the same actress, still connects them to Suicide Squad, don't they? Maybe I should just go lie down for a while and stop. This just makes my head hurt. Birds of Prey comes out on February 7th. Now, let's go and talk TV for a moment. The big Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover had many cameos. Burt Ward's Dick Grayson, Lucifer, but apparently Arrowverse producer Mark Guggenheim put out feelers to another big star, Nicolas Cage. In an interview with IndieWire, Mr. Guggenheim said, quote, "We did reach out to Nick Cage, and we reached out to a lot of people, and there were people who didn't want to do it. There were people who would only do it for amounts of money that we could never ever afford. And there were other people who really wanted to do it, but couldn't for scheduling. That was the case with a lot of, I have to say, the movie stars that we reached out to. The thing about movie stars is, they're all shooting movies. And unless those movies are shooting in Vancouver, we're kind of out of luck. But I have to say that the sheer number of actors that we did end up getting exceeded my expectation." Unquote. That's too bad. He could have finally gotten to wear that Superman suit on screen. The Crisis will conclude on January 14th. Maybe next year they should go do 0 Hour. Or wait a year or two. Anyway, let's go to some Marvel news. Kevin Feige, Marvel Studios president and chief creative officer of Marvel, confirmed at Brazil's CCXP19 Con that Disney Plus's The Falcon and the Winter Soldier will be all about what happens to the Falcon after Endgame. Quote, "We saw Old Man Cap hand that shield to Sam Wilson at the end of Endgame, and the question is, what did he do with it next? What does it mean for Sam Wilson and that shield? That's a big responsibility, and that's very much what the show focuses on and is about." Unquote. Unfortunately, Wilson will have to deal with the US government's US agent just in time for Helmut Zemo to come back on the scene. Sounds interesting, and we still have no release date though, other than the always enigmatic fall 2020. Now, speaking of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they've just added 2 new cast members. Desmond Hayam and Miki Izukawa have been added in 2 unknown roles. Also, at CCXP 19, in a sit-down interview, Mr. Feige confirmed that the Marvel Multiverse will be something that will take shape in the MCU for a long time to come. Quote, "When you first started the MCU, it was all about Tony Stark. Introduced the world to Tony Stark and that Iron Man armor. Then we went on to teach people what Asgardians were and learn about super soldiers, then bring them together in Avengers. I've always loved space movies, and I've always loved big intergalactic tales, which is why we did Guardians, and the audience came with us, so we could do a movie like Endgame. I always wanted to do time travel, which is why we eventually got to do in Endgame. The multiverse is the next step in the evolution of the MCU, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is going to crack it open in ways that will have repercussions for a Disney Plus series that's not WandaVision, and for movies after it in a big fun way." Unquote. It's also thought that the Loki series will tie into this in some way. Will we all have to wait much longer for that than the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? WandaVision comes out in spring of 21, and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness comes out on May 7th of 2021. I think it's time we start dropping the 20 from dates, people. Let's face it, we all know it's 20. Anyway, speaking of WandaVision, some paparazzi photos from the set of the show have surfaced online, and they show that the spacefaring version of S.H.I.E.L.D. will be in the show. SWORD, aka the Sentient World Observation and Response Department, was one of those properties that used to belong to 20th Century Fox's subset of Marvel characters, and will be pretty much the first of those characters to be ported over to the regular to the Disney Marvel Universe. Could Venom 2 get an R rating? And you might be able to thank Joker's billion-dollar box office if it happens. A Venom producer, Matt Tolmack, told CinemaBlend, quote, I think you always have to think about it now that works. Having said that, our movie worked really well. Our franchise exists as it is, and I don't think anybody is looking to just say, hey, they did it. We have a place in the world, so it isn't like suddenly everybody's considering what to do with the rating. I think what Joker does is it tells you what you can succeed. For a long time, that was the narrative, and Deadpool sort of wrestled that to the turf, and then Logan, but for a long time, that was considered totally forbidden. So, I think that's the greatest thing in the world that R-rated movies are being embraced by massive audiences, and it means that there are more opportunities for that kind of storytelling. Unquote. I don't know. Does an R-rated Venom 2 speak to you? Let us know. Anyway, let's talk about the comic books. Prepare to relive the greatest moments in Marvel's 80-year history. Yep, 80 years, folks. Marvel Snapshots will see Kurt Busiek bring together several creative teams for these 8 standalone double-sized issues, which will include characters from the Golden Age to today, through the eyes of ordinary people. Alex Ross will provide the covers. First off is Submariner, Marvel Snapshot number 1. A best-selling novelist and Emmy Award-winning writer Alex Brennert and artist Jerry Ordway joined forces to tell an unforgettable story about Prince Namor set during World War II and featuring Namor, Betty Dean, and the All Winners Squad. Alan Brennert, in a statement on Marvel.com, said, quote, I can honestly say that I enjoyed working on this story more than any comic story I've done in years. I grew up reading and loving Marvel's Golden Age heroes in the 60s, in reprints in fantasy masterpieces, but I never thought I'd have a shot at writing them, especially the All-Winner Squad. And I'm grateful to Kurt Busiek and Tom Brevoort for providing me the opportunity, and to Jerry Ordway for bringing it all to glorious life. I'm enormously proud of Reunion, and honored to be the first story published in Marvel Snapshots. Unquote. This year's long journey begins this March at your local comic book store. Marvel has there's some bad news for Marvel Comics, though. Marvel has postponed the release of issues 5, 6, and 7 of X-Men by a month. Issue 5 will now be out on January 29th. Issue 6 will come out on February 12th, and issue 7 will come out on the 26th of February. Now, let's go to some geek news. We start the geek news with a record-setting opening, and not a good one. Playmobil, the movie, just set the record for the lowest box office for a film opening in over 2,000 theaters. The movie, based on the toys, was sort of an answer to the Lego movie. Unfortunately, Playmobil is not as well known as Lego. Rotten Tomatoes has given the movie a 16% rating. Now, we'll check and see what it did this weekend when we look at the box office news. Now, this will be a pre-Star Wars box office report, so this will be interesting. From one record to another potential record setter, Disney's Frozen 2 just became the 6th film from the House of Mouse to cross the $1 billion mark this year. According to Variety, the movie has over $6 million internationally and $306 million in the US alone. It's currently the 8th highest grossing movie of the year. We will see if The Rise of Skywalker makes it 7. It would have just 11 days to do so. Dark Horse Comics is set to adapt Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology into a miniseries. The book was released back in 2017 and features Neil retelling Norse mythology starring Thor, Odin, Loki, and others. It has been adapted into a BBC radio production. Next year, it will be an 18-issue series adapted by Gaiman and P. Craig Russell with colors from Dave Stewart and Laverne Kadernsky, letters by Galen Showman, and art from a round table of artists like Jerry Ordway and Mike Mignola. Norse mythology will hit comic book stores on May 27th, 2020. Dynamite Entertainment is getting into the novel business. The company has announced the formation of Dynamite Books. First up is Vampirella, Blood Invasion, written by Nancy A. Collins. Here's the blurb, quote, In Vampirella Blood Invasion, Vampirella left her planet of Draculon on a desperate quest to find another source of blood that her people need to survive. After years out of contact, the skies of Earth fill with an armada of ships from her home planet. Thrilled at first to see her people, Vampirella is horrified to learn that General Orlok's plan for her adopted planet. She must choose between her own kind or take up arms with her partner Pantha and join a rebel army led by Count Dracula, Evely the Witch, and Dr. Frankenstein and his patchwork monstrosities. Unquote. It's out now, along with a line of audiobook adaptations of existing novels, including Shaft, the original novel, by Ernest Tidyman. Dynamite Books plans to release one new novel a month. Now, let's take a look at this past weekend's box office report. Now, let's look here really quick. As I mentioned, Playmobil the movie dropped from number 14 to number 23. It's making an average of $61 per screen. So in other words, like, what is that? Maybe 10 people? And has grossed just under $1 million. 966,458 total gross. Yeah, that movie just didn't do well. But let's look up further in the list here. Joker has fallen from number 11 to number 15, and that's a 53% drop from the week before. But let's start at number 10. Falling from number 7 to number 10 is 21 Bridges. Falling from number 6 to number 9 is Dark Waters. The Tom Hanks movie, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, dropped from number 5 to number 8. Queen and Slim dropped from number 4 to number 7. Ford versus Ferrari dropped from number 3 to number 6. The movie Black Christmas, the horror Christmas movie, debuts at number 5, bringing in $4.2 million. Clint Eastwood's Richard Jewell, which I've not really heard good things about. Sorry, Clint. Debuts at number 4 with $4.6 million. Knives Out, which I hear is great and funny, dropped from number 2 to number 3. It's made a total gross of $78 million. Frozen 2, which has been number 1 for weeks now, finally fell to number 2. And it's made $19 million this past weekend, losing nearly half from the previous week. And but its total domestic gross is $366.4 million. So that's a win any way you look at it. And our number 1, Jumanji: The Next Level, debuted at number 1 with $59.2 million. That's averaging $14,000 a screen in about 4,227 screens. And again, this movie will drop significantly next week, unfortunately. Star Wars is just going to suck all the air out of the box office. So that's your box office report. Finally, tonight we say goodbye to someone who's been a big part of all our childhoods, Carol Spinney. Now, you might not know that name, but you'll know the characters he played on Sesame Street, Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch. Carol was born in Waltham, Massachusetts on December 26, 1933, and became interested in puppetry at a young age. After high school, he served in the Air Force, where he created a comic strip called Harvey. Now, after he left the service, he moved to Las Vegas, where he performed in the show Rascal Rabbit, and a few years later moved to Boston, where he would eventually perform on Boston's broadcast of Bozo's Big Top. In 1960, he got married to his first wife, Janice, and had 3 children. They would divorce in 1971. In 1962, Carol would first meet Jim Henson at a puppeteering festival, where Jim asked him if he wanted to talk about the Muppets. Unfortunately, due to a misunderstanding, Carol didn't know that he was actually being offered the job and turned him down. He would meet Henson again in 1969 at a puppeteer festival in Utah, where this time he was offered again to talk about the Muppets. This time, Carol took him up on the offer and joined the Muppeteers full-time later that year, joining the cast of a brand new show called Sesame Street. In 1979, Carol would get married again, this time to Deborah Joy Gilroy, whom he would remain married to for the rest of his life. Unfortunately, Carol would eventually develop dystonia, and in October of last year, Spinney announced his retirement from Sesame Street, handing the role of Big Bird to Matt Vogel and Oscar to Eric Jacobson. In his long career, Carroll went on to win 4 Daytime Emmys, 2 Grammys, a gold record, have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, be awarded the Library of Congress Living Legend Award, and the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Lifetime Achievement Award. Carroll passed away on December 8th at his home in Connecticut. He was 85 years old. And that will bring us to the end of the comic book news. Now, be sure to check us out on our social media. We're at Twitter at Multiverse Tom. We're also on Facebook and Instagram as well. And if you'd like to contribute some money, call it my Christmas present. Why don't you? Please visit us over at mtpodcast.com, where you can just click on our Ko-fi or Patreon links. And be sure to also visit us at multiversetonight.com and check out the affiliate marketplace links. I have some new affiliates there. Especially go to Things from Another World. It's a great place. They have lots of stuff, comic books, and comic book related items. You can also find the link to our TeePublic store. They've had several sales this past month. We also have our show notes there and so much more. And if you're a subscriber, please be sure to share us with your friends. And if you're brand new to the show, please be sure to subscribe and leave us with some feedback and let us know how we're doing. Special thanks to Shane Ivers for our intro music and Lobo Loco for our outro music theme. Now, thanks for watching the comic book edition of Multiverse Tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks with the sci-fi edition. Now, please, exit the universe in an orderly fashion. Good night. Multiverse Tonight is a production of Half Baked Genre Productions. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, there's no one actually watching. But if you're watching the replay, thank you very much for finding this and watching this, and have a happy holiday. Merry Christmas. Happy Festivus. Whatever you want to have it. Have a drink on me. Good night, good luck, and have a good new year.